Hey, what's up guys, Paulo Munoz here. This video is going to cover how to set up radials, why I build it, and a couple of really cool tips and tricks that I'm sure they're going to be useful if you already have it. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, RadialZ is a brand new tool that I developed to access your brushes in a very easy and convenient way with a radial menu in ZBrush. The application is ready. You can go ahead and download it now from RadialZ.app. And this video is basically to give you some insight and some additional tips that you can use to customize the menus the way that you want, but to understand a little bit why I build it and the thinking process behind my custom shortcuts and my own custom menus that hopefully again gives you ideas to adjust or recreate them for your own work. Now we're gonna start this video with a real world scenario with a bit of a time lapse showing you how I'm using these tools to create something. Then I'm going to jump into what RadialZ actually is, the actual menus that I've built for myself. And then the final part is about customizing and those tips and tricks that I mentioned so that you can make it your own as well. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. So when I'm sculpting in ZBrush, the thing that I want the least is to think about where my brushes live. I want to think more about the form of the sculpt, the silhouette of the character, the rhythm of the shapes, that sort of thing. Everything else becomes a bit of friction, really. And to be honest, that's really the reason why I built RadialZ, and it was something that I needed to exist. And it's not just to add a new feature in ZBrush, not to replace how ZBrush works in any way. It's just an easy way to access what I use the most so that I can stay in the canvas of ZBrush and just sculpting. So what you're watching me doing right now here is me adding to the sculpt. I already had this sitting around this character, so I'm not necessarily following any plan. I'm just reacting really to what the shape needs and as it comes together to make decisions. And that kind of work only happens when the tools, like, you know, the things that you're using to sculpt disappear into the background. Or at least this is how I think you can get into that so-called flow. And every time that you see the radial popping up, it's just a quick click on the pen buttons, and I'm not moving across the screen just to search for a brush or find the file. I'm not scrolling through a list of brushes or a palette. The menu opens where my cursor is, I pick what I want, and then it closes. The whole interaction takes less than a second, and my attention never leaves the model, which is generally what I want. The menus themselves, the ones that you're seeing here, are mine, and I build them around how I actually work. And as I'm going to show you later in this video, I have one of these custom menus as my main brushes. I also have a menu for tools and another one for secondary brushes. But you can make any menu that you like, and you know, this is totally up to you. And you can make as many as you want as well. Every menu that you create triggers with a custom shortcut that you can also define within the RadialZ app. And this is partly why I needed this tool to exist and why I like it so much. The setup isn't so precious, let's say. If I brush, you know, stops earning its slot in the radial menu, I just swap it out. So for instance, if I find a new brush that I love or something new that I develop, it just goes straight into a menu. And if I think it's only useful for a particular project or something like that, that it doesn't deserve to be in the menu, what I can do is leave it in my library. And this is where the library comes in, and it's really, really handy. I can easily bring it at any point with a custom shortcut as well that I can define from the RadialZ app. I can choose that specific brush, I can load it and test it and see if that works, or just go back and find something similar if that's not the effect that I want. And I put a lot of effort into designing something that was very simple to use and, you know, very intuitive in a way. So a radial menu kind of like made a lot of sense to me because it just sits around the tip of your pen. But what I didn't expect is to find that after using these for months during the development and all of that, is that the selection of brushes or the features that I have set up in ZBrush with custom shortcuts, they become kind of like embedded into the real estate that I have to sculpt, kind of like a spatial point in the screen rather than an active thought process to choose what I'm gonna do next. And this might sound a little bit weird, but what I mean about that is if I wanna move a portion of the mesh, I'm not thinking in terms of like, you know, oh, I must select the move brush from my brush palette and adjust this part and so on. If I want to move something, I just trigger the menu and I move my hand diagonally up and right, and I don't even have to think about it. I don't think about, or I don't even see the icon anymore. I just go in that direction, select it, and continue the process. So this is what I mean, that some of the processes and the tools that I choose on a daily basis have become almost a direction in the screen rather than an active thought process. And I think that that's the part that is hard to communicate in a feature list. It's not really about the speed necessarily, although, you know, The speed is almost like the side effect really of this application, and it actually compounds over time. In a 1 hour session, for instance, you could be saving, 5 minutes, and that might not sound like much, but it accumulates, and over time it does make an impact. But again, much more than the speed, like I said, or that sort of side effect of the actual app. But what I found is that it's all about staying in this headspace where the sculpt is the main thing that exists. And that's where the real good work happens. And anything that pulls you out of that headspace or that flow, even for a second, is taxing you in a way that you don't notice until it's gone. And if you map the radial hotkey to a button of your pen, the way that I do, you genuinely never have to look away from the model, because obviously the radial menu appears right on your pen. Now that leaves your other hand free to take care of things like the modifiers, like the navigation, the smooth, the masking, all of that. So your eyes stay on the silhouette, on the sculpt that you're creating, and the menus become, like I said, muscle memory just after a couple of sessions. Like I said, after that, you kind of like stop thinking about it, which is, I think, the whole point. So yeah, that's basically RadialZ, a way to access your brushes, your shortcuts in a more convenient way, in a way that you don't have to fight the palettes or try to find your way through the ZBrush interface just to find the ones that you use the most. All right, so let's get to the first point, which is what is RadialZ. So if I bring in one of my menus, as you can see, this is literally what RadialZ is essentially a way to pick your brushes. So right now, if you look at my UI, I have my move brush. And if I bring in my custom brushes, I can go ahead and select something like this, the standard brush, right? And then I go to my sculpt, let's change the brush size, and I can just go ahead and start sculpting. I can switch back to something like the damn standard brush, for instance, and then use that instead, right? I mean, I just don't do that. That's just to show you that's basically what it is. It's just a menu picker, or like a radial menu picker for your brushes. However, the radials also work with custom shortcuts, and I'll show you how to set that up in the second part of the video. But it's basically this. So you can have your custom shortcuts. So let's say something like polyframe is something that I use all the time. Same thing as solo mode, that sort of thing. So I have all of these things, and these are shortcuts to features or buttons or switches in ZBrush. I have 3 menus. I have my brushes. These are the ones that I use the most. I have my custom set of tools, let's say. And then I have my third menu, which are basically my extended set of brushes. So anything to do with the smoothing, the masking brushes, the slicing, selection tools, all of that good stuff, right? And the cool thing is that I can trigger all of those at any point with custom shortcuts as well. Now, those are the basics of RadialZ. It allows you to select things really quickly. But there's also another thing that is super important, which is the pop-up library. So if I press my custom shortcut to bring in the pop-up library, this is the one, right? So it's a floating library. It's a floating window that you can pin. You can click on this pin, and that way it will stay where it is. And then you can just go back into ZBrush. Let's go, let's say, in the back of this guy. Let's go into the high subdivision level. And let's just go and find something like skin. So I have a bunch of custom brushes like this. So when I click on this one, and it automatically loads in here. But because I pinned this, I can just go ahead and do this, right? So I can just start adding, a bit of a very strong skin effect. And if I don't like this one, I just go to the next one, click on the next one, and load that, and start working like that. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it might not seem like much, but it does save a lot of time. So I don't have to wait until the lightbox opens, find the right folder, find the, double click the brush to load it, that sort of thing. I can just click once, it loads automatically. I can test it and say, no, that's not the one I need. Let's click on this one. This one feels a little bit better, or let's go for this one. So I can test the brushes that I need. And once I'm happy with it, I can just close this and continue, the work. So let's undo that, because that's obviously not what I want. Just wanted to show you one of the reasons I built this pop-up library. Now, the other thing, if you want to do what I just showed you, which is, let's say, test some brushes, what you can do is you can put this on the left-hand side, and you can change the size. You can also change the thumbnails like so. Oops, let's do it again. Also, this is another kind of like side note, which is actually pretty cool. If you place your library in this area and then you make it like this size and you close it, next time that you open it, it will appear in the same spot and at the same size. So I can bring it up and it will be in there. So let's click on pin. And yeah, so I can just either search for the brush if I know the name. So let's say I know for a fact there is a Halloween, there we go. So a Halloween tree. So this is a custom brush that I have from the bark and wood brushes. So I can click on this one. And this creates a really strong sort of like Halloween effect that could be really interesting for like zombie stuff. And, you know, it is meant to be for bark and wood, but there you go. That's another way of using this brush. So I know for a fact that the brush is named like this, and I can just select it and add it. But if I want to use it and it's something that I want to use constantly, I can just go ahead and hover over and click on this star. So when I click on the star, it just makes this green frame, and that tells me that it is in the favorites. So if I go to the favorites here, it is in there. I need to sort of like remove the filter, but these are kind of like the brushes that I've been selecting just as a demo, right? The other cool thing is that all of these categories or names in here are pulled from the actual names on the folders. So if I go to the bark and wood, these are all my custom brushes from the bark and wood collection. Or if I go to my HR Geiger, this is where I have all my, you know, weird looking creature stuff. So all of those things are in there, but I can search them all. So if, for example, I want to go for this membrane, all I need to do is go to all and start typing membrane, and you'll see all the results. So you see, it is dynamic in that sense. So I just don't need to type the whole thing. If I just remember roughly what the name is, that's all I need, right? And this is one of the great things about this specific workflow. All right, so let's just collapse this, and I want to show you something else which is pretty cool that I think it will also help you kind of like have ideas on how to set up your own menus. So the thing that I want to show you is that you can actually nest brushes and custom menus. So if I bring in my custom set of brushes, as I hover over each one of these, let's call it main brushes, you'll see that I have these additional children brushes. So if I go to my move brush, I have these 3 additional brushes, or if I go to my standard, I have 2, etc. Right? So you can have up to 10 brushes. Right now, I set it to 8, but that's just a number that I kind of like, a symmetrical number that I like. But you can have up to 10. And in each one of these main brushes, you can have up to 3. So in other words, you can have up to 40 brushes in a single radial menu. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is not just to showcase the feature itself, but to show you how I set this up. So if you look at my move brush, what I have added as my children brushes in the move brush are the snake hook, which I use, but not as often, the move topological, which also I use, but not as often as the move brush, and the move elastic, right? So all of these brushes are sort of related to the move brush, or to at least move meshes or move polygons really, but they are children brushes. So in other words, they're secondary brushes. So I've done the same thing with, let's say, the Geo brush, right? The Geo brush is the one that I use now as my default for cutting into the model and creating carvings and things like that. But I also have my HR Geiger cutter, which is a little bit stronger. I have a wrinkle pusher for doing wrinkles in the, you know, character skin and on the face and things like that. And I also have the damn standard brush, right? But these are all related. So they all do very similar things. They cut into the model. They create a very sharp crevice in the model. Same thing goes for something like the clay buildup. So I have this clean buildup, which is a custom brush that I did based on the clay buildup. But I also have the clay buildup, and the clay tubes. So what I'm trying to show you is that this custom menu is something that I built for myself, and I group them in a specific way that, to me, it makes sense, right? But you can make this in any way that you want. Now, the other thing is not just the nesting, but if you, let's say, are working with the move brush, right? You can go ahead and switch to the move topological, right? So now this is my selected brush, but if I bring in back my menu, that brush, the move topological, now becomes the parent brush. So it is the brush that I've been using, right? And it will remain here at any point. So let's say if this is the new one that I'm using, I can just go to the standard brush and start doing my things, bring in my move topological. I'm not going to use it right now because I have a lot of polygons, but I can keep using this until I decide, you know what, let's go back to the normal move brush, and that becomes my new parent. So it is persistent in that way. So you can just jump between the different brushes that you have in your children brushes or the parent brushes. So pretty cool stuff. All right, so now something a bit more practical is that you can nest your brushes or any menu really within a single slot. So what I've created is an additional menu here. By the way, you can turn this on and off, like the icons and the text, and I'll show you that in a second. But basically, this allows me to select any of my 3 menus, right? So my brushes would be this one, or I can trigger my auxiliary brushes, which are, you know, the smoothing, the control keys, the masking, which are mapped to the control keys and that sort of thing. Or I can just bring in my tools, which just has the connection to specific shortcuts that I have set up in ZBrush. Or again, if I bring this up, I can go to the library and it will switch or bring that library. So This is something that is totally optional. This is not just how it works. This is purely something that I built to show you the possibility, not necessarily something that I use. For me, the fact that I have this is useful, but if I click on bringing this menu and then click on brushes to bring this up, it is an additional set of clicks that I don't want to have. So instead, I have mapped my custom radial menus to buttons in my Wacom pen, so I can just trigger them straight away exactly what I wanted to, and they all appear there. So I just saved a lot of time. But just wanted to show you that if you want to do something like this, the possibility is there. And I also have a custom shortcut for the library, so I can open that as well with a single click. So that is Radials in a nutshell. I just wanted to show you what the idea is behind it and how I set things up. I want to show you now how easy it is to build something like this, especially when it comes to something like the custom shortcuts, right? Because the brushes are actually pretty easy, you'll see in a second. But the custom shortcuts, all you need to do is have the shortcut ready in ZBrush. You can have a macro as well. So in ZBrush, you can create a new macro that does multiple things in one single go, assign a single shortcut to that macro, and then set it up in Radials. So I'm gonna bring up the Radials application here. So this is how you set things up, right? So you see I have multiple menus. You can have as many as you want. You can keep adding menus, and all of these menus, they all work with a different shortcut, right? So you see I've mapped my brushes to Alt-A, my tools to Alt-Q. This is the one that triggers like the 4 sort of text bits in here. And then you can customize the colors, you can customize all of that. But let's go ahead and create one really quickly just to show you how easy this is. And I'm gonna show you a combination of brushes and shortcuts. So let's click on Add Menu. I'm gonna call this one Demo. And I'm gonna assign a Control R, right? So Control R is gonna be my custom trigger for this new menu. Then we can change the shape of the menu. I'm gonna leave it as circle. You can change that later as well. Now, when it comes to the menu type, you have 2 options, the advanced menu and the basic radial menu. The advanced menu just means that you can just drag and drop brushes. You don't have to set up any shortcuts or anything. You just drag the brush that you want and ZBrush will pick it up. With the basic radial menu, it works based on shortcuts. So this is what I would use for just shortcuts. So let's click on this one and let's click on Create Menu. All right, that's it. We now have a menu. I'm gonna save changes and I'm gonna go ahead and press Control R. All right, so this is working and you can see that we have like empty areas, of course. We haven't added anything, but I just wanted to show you that even though it works, so Control R triggers my menu, it also triggers a render. So let me just do it again and pay attention to what happens here at the top. So Control R, right? So it is rendering as well. So it's basically using a shortcut that is already part of ZBrush to do something else. So I just wanted to show you that because it is important that you choose a shortcut that it hasn't been used in ZBrush. So let's go back in here and I'm gonna clear this and I'm gonna record a different one. I'm gonna use F7, okay? That I'm pretty sure I don't have that in ZBrush. So let's save changes, go back in here, and I'm gonna trigger with F7. There you go. So now it triggers and it doesn't affect anything else in ZBrush. All right, so now that we know it works, let's go back into the menu and I'm gonna click on Edit Menu. And this is the menu editor that will pop up. It is super easy to use. I'm actually gonna click here and drag to allow for some more space. And I'm also gonna increase my thumbnails so that you can see more of that. And let's go ahead and build some of these brushes. So I'm gonna start searching for the ones that I use the most. And what I would encourage you to do is think about your workflows, think about your process. What are the tools that you use the most? And there is a good chance that you have already set up a custom UI in ZBrush with the brushes that you use the most. So those are the ones that I would create first into a radial. So I'm gonna type move brush or just move, and you'll see it here. I'm gonna click and drag that into this slot 2. There is a reason why I put it in here, and I'll cover that in a second. And then I also have the move topological and the move elastic, let's say, that I use quite often, but I don't wanna use them in this. So I could just have them in here, drag them in there, and then I'll have 3 move brushes. But I wanna have other brushes. These ones are the 2 brushes that I don't use as often. So I can just click on this to remove them. And instead, I'm gonna add them as children. Adding children brushes is a very simple thing. All you need to do is double click the one you wanna add. So double click the move. And now it says editing children of the move brush, right? So you enter in this sort of editing mode. And in here, I can just drag and drop in to this slot here. And the same thing with the move elastic. I could add another one. So just for the sake of demo, I'm gonna show you with this move infinite depth. Let's put it in there. And that's it. Now, I also like to match the size of the parent brushes with the children brushes. So I'm gonna click on match parent size and click on done just to finish. So you'll see that my move brush now has these 3 dots at the bottom. That indicates that there are 3 brushes attached. Now you can click once and it goes into the brush settings, and you can just change the name if you want. It doesn't affect the brush or the selection of the brush. It is already connected by the bridge, but you can just call it whatever you want. I'm just gonna call it move, right? It doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you that you can change it. So if you want a specific text to be, something that you remember easily, or maybe a brush that is very, very long in terms of the name, you can change that. So here at the bottom, you have the children. So I'm gonna call this move topological, just topo. The elastic, I'm gonna call it elastic. And this move infinite, I'm gonna call it infinite, right? That's it, right? So when I double click and go in, you have the names, and this is how they're going to appear in the radial menu. All right, so done, that's it. So in a single slot for this brush, we have 4 brushes, the parent and 3 children. So I wanna do the rest really quickly without the children, just so that you know how I do it. So let's go for inflate. So let's put the inflate in there. Let's do pinch. So these are all basic brushes that are super useful. Let's search for clay. Here we go. Soft clay, let's add that one there. And the clay buildup as well, let's put it in here. You can add it all within a children. In fact, let's just do that. It's very easy. So double click, let's put that one in there, and maybe the clay tubes as well, and match, save. Okay, so we have 4 brushes and children brushes. All right, let me just adjust this a little bit, and I'm just gonna show you something else. So for these remaining 4 slots, what I wanna do is map custom shortcuts that I have already in ZBrush and something that I use all the time. So to do that, let's go ahead and click on slot number 6 that enters into kind of like the settings of this area right here. And then you'll notice that, first of all, this is not blue because we haven't assigned anything, and there is no Thunderbolt icon. So if I click on the soft clay here, you see we have this Thunderbolt soft clay. So that tells me that the bridge is working. So basically, this doesn't require a specific shortcut. It just looks for the specific brush and it works. But if I click on this one, you actually need to put the shortcut. So to keep it simple, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on record and I'm gonna type Control W. So Control W in ZBrush is to assign a polygroup, right? So I'm gonna call this one polygroup. And you can click here to add any shortcut that you want. It could be an image, it could be a photo of yourself, anything that kind of like helps you recognize this quickly. So I have created a few icons myself. These ones are just a simple document in 512 by 512 in Photoshop with a black background, and I just made this up because again, visually it just helps me recognize them easily. So in this case, for the polygroup, what I want to do is group mask or group visible. Any of these would work. So I'm going to do group visible and click on open. So this one is now my polygroup or group visible. So now I have a custom shortcut that I can trigger in ZBrush. Let's go ahead and do the other ones now that you know a little bit faster. So I'm gonna click on this one. And for this, let's go ahead and select another icon. So I wanna use this one, the merge down, click OK. So the merge down icon, call it merge down. And for me, the merge down will be Control E. Again, this is just a custom shortcut. It could be different for you, or you might not even have a shortcut for the merge down, but I use this one. That's it. Let's go ahead and do another one. And I'm just going to use this delete hidden just for fun, or this is the one that I use for delete hidden. And for me, delete hidden is Control X. And that's it. So I have 3 custom shortcuts and 4 brushes with, sub brushes, if you want to call it like that. And then here at the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can nest additional brushes or additional shortcuts. So I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to select a different icon, this one, for more. And instead of using a shortcut that I have assigned in ZBrush, I'm going to simply use a shortcut that I have assigned for my custom radial menus. So I'm going to click on record and I'm going to click on Alt Q, which is one of my menus, the one that have most of these things anyway. And I'm going to call this one more. And that's it. I'm going to click on save and close now. And let's go back in ZBrush here. And if you remember, I mapped that to F7. So now here is my menu. So I have the more, I have the delete hidden, the merge down, and the polygroup, which are all custom shortcuts. And I have my brushes, and some of these brushes have additional, sub menus or sub brushes. So I can click on clay buildup. It will load the clay buildup. I can bring that again here, and I'm going to use the pinch brush, right? So it is very, very practical. Now, just to show you the other bits so that I don't mess with this one, I'm going to bring in a sphere, and I'm going to center there. And let's go ahead, and I'm just going to bring in polyframe quickly, and something like this. And I can just go ahead and use this. Oops, before I do that, actually, let me just change this quickly to select lasso maybe. So I want to do something like this, right? Bring in my custom menu that we just created, and I want to click on polygroup visible. So now this is a different polygroup. I'm going to do it a couple more times just to create a different color here. Bring back everything. So now we have a different polygroup. Again, this is just a custom shortcut. But maybe what I can do is I can dynamesh this sphere, and then I'm going to hide a portion of it, right? And this is, by the way, this is visible. And you'll see this is the reason why I have my custom shortcut. So I'm just branching out here a little bit. But because I use this all the time and I need to see inside, if I bring in my custom tools menu, I have a specific one for this situation. So I can go here and I have this visibility. So you see it's even like a half a sphere. So I'm going to click on that. And now I can see what is in there. And that is purely because in my custom UI, I have this assigned to the V key, which is the double-sided. Again, you might not have that, but that's why it's important to have your custom key in here. All right, but what I was getting at is if you bring in the custom menu that we just built, I want to delete that half sphere. So I can click on delete hidden, which is mapped to my Control X. And I'm going to show you in the geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. If I hover over, you see that is my assigned shortcut. So Control X is to delete hidden. Now, let me just stop the video here for a second in case you don't know how to assign custom shortcuts in ZBrush. It's extremely easy, and you can assign virtually any shortcut to anything in ZBrush. So I'm going to show you how to do that because, again, it's super, super easy. So let's say that you want to do something like mirror and weld, and I currently don't have a shortcut for it. So mirror and weld is here. I also have it here in my UI. And let's say that I want to map this to a custom shortcut so that I can trigger it from my menu. So I'm going to hold the Control, the Alt, and the left click once, and that automatically sends me into this mode. If you look at the top where it says, press any key combination to assign a custom key or press escape to cancel. So I haven't touched anything yet. This is where you can assign your custom shortcut. So right now I'm going to press Shift M, and it says that it has been assigned already to something else. So I'm not going to, let me just see. And in my case, I think it's because the Shift M is the magnify. Yes, so it is the magnifier glass. This is just a cool effect that comes in ZBrush. So I'm not going to override this one. Instead, let me just check Alt M. Yeah, I think I'm going to go for Alt M. So Control Alt, left click, now Alt M. So now Alt M is my mirror and weld. So I'm going to go ahead and press Alt M. So you see, that's what it does. It just mirrors to the other side, right? That's how easy it is to just add shortcuts. Now let's go back to the custom menu because that's what we were testing anyway. Just wanted to show you how easy it is to add custom shortcuts. So we've proven the del hidden, the merge down, and the polygroup. Sorry, not the merge down. Let's actually do that. So I'm going to do, let's do another version of this, and I'm just going to scale this down like so. And in fact, let's go ahead and redynamesh this as well as this one. And I'm going to bring in that specific menu that we created, and I'm going to click on merge down. And this is going to ask me, this is an undoable operation. I want to click on always OK so that it doesn't prompt every time that I do it. And there we go. So now they're combined, but they are not the same object, right? So they are together in the same subtool, but they're still separate objects. So I actually have a shortcut in my toolkit here that allows me to auto groups. So I can click on auto groups, and that way I have two different objects, and that way I can just sort of select it. Oh, by the way, I need to change this to like rectangular. There you go. So I can split this if I want to. So if I want to split this, again, with my custom menu, I can select this one, bring in the custom menu, and I have the split hidden. Again, this is the reason why I build this for myself, because I use this all the time. And then if I want to merge them back again, I just go merge down. Now, this brings me to a couple of things that are really important when you're setting up your menus. You'll see that when I bring this, my custom menu, right, I have the merge down towards the bottom. That to me just makes visual sense, like spatially makes sense, because I want to merge whatever I have selected here down. I'm not necessarily going to bring my custom shortcut on the side. I usually just, I'm just sculpting and I bring it here and I just want to merge it down, okay? So that is why I have it in here. So in our custom menu, it's on the left-hand side. So I'm going to show you how you can move it around and all of that, because it just makes sense. Same thing goes when it comes to selecting brushes. It gets to a point that you don't really even think about it too much. I just bring in my menu and then I go towards the top right and select the move brush. That's it. And I continue. So I don't really open it and read and check my icons. It becomes more like a muscle memory. I know that if I want to go up, that's all my standards. Left is anything to cut, right anything to polish. Top right is all my move brushes, bottom right is all my clay brushes, and anything more specific, I'll just go here like retopology stuff and that sort of thing. So that's just how I think. It doesn't mean that you have to set it up like that. You have the ability to completely change this and turn it into something that makes a lot more sense to you than what it does to me in this case. All right, so let's do one more test with our custom menu here. That is this more. So if I click on this, remember we have assigned a Alt Q, which triggers one of my menus, my tool menu. So if I click on this one, it will trigger my menu right here. Okay, so you could potentially do that. You can have, just like I have this one, right? You can have an entire menu like this one that every single slot here will trigger another menu. Again, for me, it kind of like defeats the purpose of Radials and that sort of simplicity of I just want to keep sculpting and focus on the sculpt. But you could do that if you're happy to work that way. For me, it's just easy to have, 3 or 4 custom, radial menus that I can access different things on different menus, and that's it. All right, so now that those basics are done, let's go back into the Radials here, and I want to show you a couple things that you can do to edit this menu. You can have more than 8, like I mentioned. 8 is kind of like the magic number that I found to be nice, balance, but you can have more. You can have up to 10. So if you go here down the bottom and click on this one, and you can push it to 10, or you can reduce it as well, right? So this is totally up to you. I said the one that has like my main 4 stuff, I set it up to be 4, and I change from the circle to the rectangle here. And that is basically only giving you the option of names. So now I will be able to choose my 4 brushes in this case, so the 4 things that I have set up in my menu like so. So let's go back and set this up again to 8, and there we go. Now there's a specific thing I want to mention here, which is it might be like a tricky thing or like a hidden thing that it's important to know. Let's say that you want to have a less than this. You want to have 7, right? But you want to keep your delete hidden, and you just want to get rid of, I don't know, the soft clay for whatever reason. If you set this to 7, it's going to hide the higher slot number. So in other words, this one is number 8. So you start like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this is number 8. So when you go back to 7, it just hides number 8, right? And so it does it sequentially. So there is a tiny thing that I want to show you. If you want to hide this specific one, you can click on it, right? And you can go here where it says hidden. So if I click on this one, it's automatically going to send this back to 7 and is going to hide that one. Or you can just go back to 8 again and it will appear here. So in this case, you can go, let's remove the soft clay, or not remove it altogether, but remove the visibility of this slot. So go here and click on hidden, and that's it, right? You could do the same thing, let's say the move brush, and that's how you can hide the specific ones that you want. And once you want to bring them back, you just push this forward again to the number that you had, or 10 if you don't remember. So that's just an extra little thing that is kind of like quality of life. Good to have it here so that you don't have to deal with this. The alternative, and it's kind of like the other way of arranging your menu, is using these buttons right here. So for instance, the move brush makes sense to me in this area, but if I go to the merge down, I can just move that down. So I select this one and I just go counterclockwise and I put that here at the bottom. And then that's it. That's all I want to do. And I can save now and it will work just fine. So if I go back into ZBrush and trigger my menu, then you have the new arrangement. Now, the final thing I want to show you, I'm going to click on this one, is that you can change the spacing and the size. So you can go for a really, really big menu that is tight. So there's less spacing between the brushes. So that might be something good in terms of accessibility. Or if you just want to, move your mouse the least possible amount, you can make the size really small and tight. Click on Save Menu, and next time that you open it, so let's trigger it again, it's going to be really tiny. So it is totally up to you. You also can change the size of the children brushes, but yeah, that's totally up to you. And if I go back one more time here, let's make this a bit better. Something like this, is that if for some reason you go ahead and click on the move brush and accidentally change it or remove it, or if you go in here and maybe remove these ones as well, or accidentally change it and you're not happy with this, what you can do is you can restore it. So you can just go back at the top and click on restore, and then click again to confirm before the little line finishes, that little animation. So I'm going to click on confirm, and it will restore it to the previous saved state. So when I kill it like so, let's leave it normal, save and close, and that's it. And just to show you that you can make this, customize it the way you want it, I'm gonna make a couple of changes, make the background yellow so it's pretty bright, and let's go for a purple for the menu lines. The text, let's keep it at, green, and let's save those changes. Save changes, go back in ZBrush, and let's trigger it again. So it is totally customizable in that sense. And I just made it that way so that it looks nicer, but also if you stream and you do, share your process and that sort of thing, it sort of matches your brand and you can customize it a bit more. So hopefully that helps. Now that covers everything that I wanted to show you in terms of what RadialZ is, why I built it, and how I set my own menus in case you want to replicate them or try to set them up in a similar way. This is how I do it, and this is the thinking behind of how I set this up and why I build it in a specific way.